Hard Knocks training camp, you are embedded with a team for 6 to 7 weeks straight, no breaks, no days off. I always thought it was really important to get everyone to feel empowered, to feel like they're important and they're part of the creative process, not just the person that puts the gear away or makes sure we're stocked up on crafty. If you have ideas, come to me. The more invested I think people are in any given project, I think the more successful you're going to be.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Unscripted Files. My name is Madeline Cunningham. I am a development producer in the unscripted industry, bringing you exclusive insights, candid conversations with the creatives behind your favorite unscripted entertainment. Whether it's reality, dating, culinary, documentary, we're talking to all of the bigwigs and the unsung heroes behind the industry. I hope you guys had a great summer. It's a new season, so I wanted to be able to offer you guys some other new things. So every other Monday, I will be dropping a mini-sode with unscripted industry expert Emily Wilson. She's going to give me the latest in unscripted news, whether it is mergers and acquisitions, commissions, green lights, and we are just going to have a little chat about them. Make sure to subscribe, put your downloads on, and we'll be dropping an episode every other Monday so that you can stay up to date and on top of everything unscripted. We are literally going to kick off this season with the senior producer at NFL Films, Matt Dissinger. From intern at NFL Films all the way to directing Hard Knocks, as well as the director of Quarterback, which is the series on Netflix that follows 3 quarterbacks over the course of a season. It was so interesting to talk to him about sports storytelling. Hard Knocks specifically turns around in near real time, so talking to him about that fine-tuned machine and ultimately about how sports is having its moment, especially in popular media and culture. So really incredible conversation. Thanks so much for being back. I can't wait for the rest of the season. Here is my conversation with senior producer, NFL Films, Matt Dissinger. Welcome to the Unscripted Files. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in honor of football season, it kind of feels like the perfect way to kick things off. You've been with NFL Films for quite a while. I mean, I see some of your first credits, early 2000s, 2007, 8. Talk to me about how you got started with NFL Films and what drew you to sports entertainment.
Yeah, I finished college and I had done an internship at a television station in Boston in their sports department. And I was like, oh, this is great. I want to do this for a living. And then, as anyone knows, you attempt to get your foot in the door into the field, and it's impossible. So I went to grad school for broadcast, telecommunications, and mass media at Temple. And I remember one day I was in a class, and they're like, "Hey, if you like sports, NFL Films is right over the bridge." And I was like, "I like sports," so I applied for an internship. It was sort of right time, right place. The NFL Network had just started, so there was sort of this brand new world for NFL Films, who is owned by the NFL. And I got lucky and was hired right after my internship and been here ever since.
I mean, that kind of longevity in one place is kind of rare nowadays, especially in entertainment. You said you started an internship, then I see you had associate producer role on like Hard Knocks, and nearly 2 decades later, you're directing this series. When you look at that kind of career arc, like what can you attribute about sort of your work ethic and your traits that allow for you to have that kind of movement?
That was funny because 2006 Kansas City Chiefs Hard Knocks was the first one I was a part of. I was assigned, I actually operated the robotic cameras, was my first job on Hard Knocks. And I remember Steve Sable, who is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He is the sort of founder of our company. I remember we had a big meeting before anyone left, and he said to us that Hard Knocks was like having our Super Bowl before the season started. And I remember in that moment, I said to myself, well, I want to direct this show one day. I think it was just, the attitude of you have to do the dirty work, you have to be the PA, you have to, whatever the cliches are, go get coffee, and you just sort of start proving your worth, especially in this company. This company sort of came from a very family-based mom and pop, even though it's this huge, NFL conglomerate now. But you prove your worth, you sort of take note and are very observant. And I always thought of myself as very resourceful, absorbing what I thought worked, always sort of registering what I would do differently when I got the opportunity. And I was really lucky. Got my dream job. What was that, like 12, 13 years into my career? So it was really exciting.
No, that is so exciting. I think being able to say that and knowing that you put the work in and, paying your dues, I feel like I don't know if I necessarily love the term, but it's true. I mean, you really do like in a day and age where we really want sort of instant satisfaction and results, there is something to be said for really just putting in the work and, being able to prove yourself. How did you feel that first day on set as a director? Did you feel like you felt pretty comfortable or were
Ooh.
you totally like freaking out?
There's a little bit. I mean, I felt pretty comfortable. I had been at that point in time from '06 to 15 or whatever. There wasn't a Hard Knocks every single year, but I knew what I was doing. But there's always, I think, this element of sort of fake it till you make it when you get into those positions. I mean, look, I was as prepared can be, but there's still things you can just never prepare for. The thing I tell people, actually, the guy that is directing Hard Knocks this year was part of my staff. It was his first year when I was my first year as lead director. And we were just talking recently. I was trying to give him advice. And I go, nothing can prepare you because you go from, part of the directing staff to now everybody knows your name. And when you're on the field, all eyes are on you in a way. Like when you are maybe the third director, maybe no one's really paying attention. But if you're the lead director, you just can't be scrolling Instagram on your phone in the middle of practice. It just changes. Everything changes. And so one of the things that changed for me was making it really important when you do a show like Hard Knocks and you're the director to try to know everyone's name, everyone's role with the team you're on, just to be respectful. And I think it just sort of earns you a certain amount of trust with the team that you're taking everybody seriously, that you value everyone from, equipment staff all the way up to the team president. So that was something that I learned in my first year directing.
Well, yeah, and having been in those positions, it becomes pretty easy to ensure that you are recognizing everyone on set and like, being inclusive because it seems like, the show really can nurture people from the ground up. You were just saying the current director, was a part of your team. And it seems like there's an environment that's fostering a lot of like upward growth and movement and that is encouraging people to step into those roles and empowering them, which is really, really cool. What's kind of a major career lesson that you learned early on that you'll kind of never forget?
I think something that I learned early on, especially with Hard Knocks being such a huge part of my career, I thought it was really important to empower everyone on that crew. And it's such a unique thing in our industry and in our building. I mean, Hard Knocks training camp, you are embedded with a team for 6 to 7 weeks straight, no breaks, no days off. You live with the team, you see them every single day for whatever that ends up being 8, 10, 12 hours. So I always thought it was really important to get everyone to feel empowered, to feel like they're important and they're part of the creative process, not just the person that whatever puts the gear away or makes sure we're stocked up on crafty. Like, if you have ideas, come to me. Like, the more invested I think people are in any given project, I think the more successful you're going to be. And that was just something I sort of learned. I don't know that that was something I was taught necessarily. I maybe felt a certain way as not the lead director. And when I got that position, I thought, this is the way I'm going to operate when it's my opportunity. So hopefully, that paid off in a practical way for the people that I worked with, and hopefully they felt that as well. I mean, I certainly feel like the results were on the screen, when we
Yeah,
made
100%. Well, it's tough to be in those positions where you do have ideas and you have that feeling, that itching, like you were saying, of like, I want to direct this show. And you know that have creative sort of collaborative ideas. And so I think, like I said, it's probably pretty natural for once you got in that position, you were like, let me ensure that I'm hearing from everyone and like creating this open environment. You've been storytelling in this space for a while, but I feel like sports is having such a major moment. I mean, at least for me on the development side, every mandate I see is sports, sports, sports. It's been that way for a couple of years. I know it's been your whole life, but how has the industry and its athletes sort of evolved over the past 2 decades? Like, what huge changes have you seen?
think, something that has changed big time is, cable and people cutting the cord, and how sports sort of holds this very important place now in our industry, where it's sort of the one thing that people watch live. There's so many things, even the most popular of shows, I think people might even watch the next day, but no one is, going to record, NFL Sundays and watch them the next day. They're going to be out of the loop. So I think that has made, especially the NFL, super valuable. There's very few things anymore that I think someone's going to sit down and watch commercials, watch live as it's happening. And so, I feel like that sort of took a little while to enter into the streaming space. Netflix, I know initially was like, we don't need the NFL. We want nothing to do with the NFL. And now we did quarterback, which was so successful that that led to Netflix having live games. So it's sort of interesting. Sports is a very unique commodity, I think, in this industry. It's all I've known, but going from a place where Netflix is like, no, thank you to NFL, and then now being a huge partner of ours, I think kind of shows you the evolution and just how important sports is in our media environment.
100%. I mean, you were talking about the fact that people don't want to record it and watch it the next day because then they miss out on the collective cultural conversation. And I wonder if that thirst for sports content, stuff that's live and of the moment, do you think it comes from a potentially post pandemic wanting to all collectively experience and be a part of something? Do you think that that maybe is feeding the frenzy a bit?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's always existed. It's obviously evolved. That is maybe something that got stronger after the pandemic, because sports has always sort of been about community, like fan bases. I'm sure there's certain father-in-law, son-in-law combinations. That's the only thing they talk about. I mean, it just is pervasive everywhere. And coming into work the next day, talking about the local team and what happened in the game is such a huge part of what we do. And obviously that's evolved with social media now, where at one point I'm sure it was like, I remember being in high school, for instance, and if you didn't watch whatever the Super Bowl or World Series or whatever the big sporting event was, you were out of the loop. Now I'm sure that that has expanded and become even more important. It's just one of those things, I think, that's, if anything has been steadfast, it's like hasn't really become less important, has only gained importance, where maybe other things in the media landscape have not been so important. For instance, like watching a show the night it airs, kind of, we're in an era now of binge TV where you sort of catch up when you catch up, but that's just not the case with sports and never has been. So I think, yeah, the fact that it sort of remains what it's always been, but stronger, maybe more widespread with the internet and social media, is kind of what makes it so important.
Yeah, I think only sports and Love Island have that power right now. Like, honestly, like, you have to watch it that night. Like, they're again, because, like, you're voting it live and you're gonna be part of that conversation. I also think that people have their teams, but I also feel like people fall in love with athletes, and social media has allowed us an entry point into their day-to-day lives to see what they're like, whereas, 20 years ago, it wasn't necessarily like that. And so we're really getting to fall in love with these personalities. And that's a big, part of what you do too, is like humanizing these individuals and diving deeper into their story. Um, you know, Football, there's so many breakdowns and there's so many angles and there's so much coverage. It's been around for a long time. How do you approach keeping it fresh after replay and slow-mo? How are you sort of approaching, your football shows to try and keep it fresh and of the moment?
It's sort of simple in a way, because the more that you can present relatable things about these athletes to an audience, the better off you're going to be. I mean, great stories are great stories, so they should apply universally. When you're working on a show like quarterback, for instance, and you're showing sort of the demands on a starting quarterback's life and what they have going on at home, and like how they try to disconnect from the game when they get home with their kids, that's something that a lot of people can relate to. You don't have to be a star quarterback to get it and to sort of, you know, start becoming interested in these guys' stories and rooting for them. So it's really like a lot of what NFL Films has done since its inception is sort of mythologize the NFL, which is awesome. And so there's a little bit of that with everything we do. I'm not going to pretend like we don't do that in quarterback as well. But also, the more that you can sort of present the relatability and the human aspect of these stories that are universally, I think, appealing, I think that's sort of the sweet spot for what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. Stuff that transcends like status and like talent and, absolutely. That's what I think makes it so compelling. And so as much as people like to conspire that the NFL is scripted, I mean, none of what you do can really be predictable, for the most part, especially every season of Hard Knocks or what's going to play out with the three quarterbacks you're following. So how do you craft something compelling when you have no control over the outcome?
The answer is almost always you have to film a lot. You know what I mean? Like, especially with the Hard Knocks thing we used to say, and, as the director and doing media, it would always be we shoot 300 minutes for every 1 minute that makes the show. And I'm sure that that has fluctuated probably even more so now that it's all digital. But it is. I mean, you have to, especially with Hard Knocks specifically, to be honest with everybody, training camp is incredibly boring. And like everyone that participates in training camps knows that's true. And so it's really an achievement, I think, to like go into this where it's sort of Groundhog's Day for all these guys and just sift through enough of the volume of footage that we find and find the interesting stories. I mean, we've always been able to do it, but I don't know how people really realize just how much work goes into that. It's not like something hugely entertaining is happening all the time. It's really, filming high volume, being perceptive, having good storytellers that can recognize, like, oh, we have this guy that's on the fringe of the roster. Maybe we wired him at a practice and he didn't really say a whole lot, but man, we went after practice and we filmed him, with his girlfriend and his daughter. And man, that was really compelling. Yeah, maybe what he did at practice wasn't super interesting, but this shoot that we did afterwards is great. And it's going to make the audience fall in love with him. And now you have sort of a character, you have a Hard Knocks character that you can root for. I think, a lot of what we can't control, you sort of try to turn it into your weaknesses into strengths.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say it's Groundhog Day for these guys because as an audience, and I'm specifically, I think as a male audience, it's like, oh my God, an NFL training day. It's like it feels to the audience like but it's just another day to these guys. So let's get into Hard Knocks. So how is it decided who you're going to follow? Does it come down to sort of like organization owners? Do they approach you? Do you approach them? How does that decision get made?
It's different every year, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, there's been years where we have received interest from a team, like whether that was the team president or whatever. That makes it a lot easier. They have enacted certain rules at the league level for this show to continue to ensure participation. So there's been times where people have whatever fit those rules and we've, as gently as we can selected them for the show, in which those situations, and with every Hard Knocks that's ever happened ever, there's going to be some resistance. It's just an unusual thing to invite cameras into what's normally a private training camp atmosphere. And that always comes down to the director's ability, the crew's ability to sort of blend into the background, to earn their trust. We always say that around week 2 of Hard Knocks that we start getting the comments, wow, I don't even notice you guys are here. Like, wow, this is not at all what I thought it was going to be. It's so much less intrusive. And the idea of what it's going to be versus the reality is always kind of a huge thing for us to get through with Hard Knocks. But yeah, in terms of how teams become involved, it's always a different story. I'm not even sure what the story was with the Bills. I believe there was some interest from the organization. I know that they have, a new stadium coming, which that kind of a thing often plays into it. If there's some new thing that's important to the organization to promote, that helps, help promote that. Obviously, HBO is a great platform. There's a lot of non-traditional eyeballs that will go and watch Hard Knocks versus the traditional games. So there's a lot of things at play, and it's always sort of a different deal each offseason how that team ends up being featured.
Yeah, well, they got an MVP and Josh Allen and
Right.
no, okay, interesting. So you were talking about how, I mean, you obviously know the players when you're going in once the team is locked down. And so you maybe have an idea of like who's good on camera, who's charismatic, like who would be interesting to follow. But you really are having to kind of think on the fly and select these characters that sort of stick out to you. Is that just a gut instinct you've sort of honed in on, you and your team being able to pick out, these people that are gonna resonate with the audiences?
But yeah, I mean, Hard Knocks is it's like its own like ecosystem. And we do as much preparation. There's packets of profiles on everybody on the roster. You're Googling, trying to find videos of these guys, whether they're good on camera or not. I mean, we put in a lot of work to try and at least get some predictions about what's going to work. But really, it's absolutely impossible. Like, you just have to go, you have to be embedded there, you have to be observant. Like, one of the things that I would preach early on was like, hey, everybody, like, we might be focusing on this character. He's wearing a wire today, but I need you to keep your antenna, keep your eyes and ears open. You never know. And inevitably, every single year, new characters emerge that you did not have on your radar whatsoever. And they become feature characters because there's only so much research you can do. It can only tell you so much. But when you're there in the environment, witnessing it day in and day out, talking to people, witnessing interactions, inevitably these stories rise up. And, I think we're good enough directors that we recognize that and relay it back to our editorial team here in New Jersey. And it's always been, I think, the secret sauce with Hard Knocks is finding those stories that were unpredictable.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite? Like, do you have a favorite sort of example of someone who was totally not on your radar that emerged as a feature character?
We had Charles James in Houston, which is my first year directing. I don't remember how much he was on our radar going into it. It's possible he was on it, but I know that we had a scene on the first day where they arrived and were moving into their dorms, and he kind of popped in that moment. We're like, oh, this guy's interesting. And we ended up following him, and he just became, still to this day, my favorite long shot character. I mean, there was a game where they tried him at running back, even though his position was defensive back, and he broke this huge touchdown run. And for like a Hard Knocks moment, you can't ask for much better than that. It's almost like Hollywood scripted, which
Mhm.
it's rare for it to happen, but we earned his trust, we earned the trust of the team, and I feel like we told like a really just complete story with him, and he was really funny, and like I would imagine most of the audience was rooting for him. So that's my favorite sort of long shot character that we unearthed in the field.
I love that. You said that you get a lot of comments that they don't even notice that you're there. And I'm sure that's probably because when a lot of people perceive and think of like reality TV and docu-follow, it feels, I don't know, very like Kardashians and intrusive or whatever you want to call it. But what are some things you and your team do to really try and like be more fly on the wall, earn the trust of these guys? Like, what are some practices and just like things that you enact on your set to make sure that you're laying low and trying to get like the most, authentic and genuine interactions and things possible?
We really respect the boundaries, especially when you're on the practice field. I think there is, like I said, if you've never experienced Hard Knocks before and you watch the show, which is I think a compliment to us that you're like, oh my God, they must have had a million cameras. They must have filmed all the time. Like, there's never a second that the cameras aren't rolling. And, none of that's true. We would never get the show made if that was true. And so the expectation going in, I'm sure, versus when we actually show up and we have like 5 crews, those crews know where to be in the practice field. They know how to sort of blend in to not get in the way. I mean, these are the same people. These crews are the same people that are on NFL sidelines and have been on NFL sidelines for decades. They know when the offense is doing X, Y, and Z, we should be over here and don't stand here. So the field itself, knowing our boundaries there, and then just I think it's always been really important to sort of set people's expectations when you request to film with them. So if you were doing an off the field shoot with somebody in their home and you say to them, look, we need 30 minutes and we need whatever, you playing with your kids by the pool, and then we want to talk to you and your wife for 10 minutes. Meeting those expectations, delivering what you promised you were going to do, that goes a long way towards earning trust. And again, sort of easing those fears of what everyone thought this was going to be like. And I think all those things go a long way. I mean, we also have, robotic cameras that when you initially walk into a room the first day of training camp, you're like, oh my God, there's cameras in our meeting room. What's going on? And one of the things that I always did was I would go into the room where the robo cameras were located with the people that were operating the robo cameras, and I would say, "Hey, everybody, this is Drew. Drew is the one behind the camera." So it's sort of humanized what would probably be a really suspicious, like, "Oh my God, they're spying on us all the
Big brother.
time." Yeah, to the point where they would come in the room and they would go, "Hey, Drew, are you recording?" And he would make the camera nod and so it just sort of, again, sort of broke down some of those fears, sort of earned the trust. Whatever they thought was going to happen, like, oh, these cameras are in there rolling 24/7, they quickly realized that there's an actual human that has to hit a button and he's trying to pay attention to, like, whatever it is now, 10 different rooms simultaneously. He might not be watching you at all. So there's a lot of various ways with Hard Knocks specifically that I think you earn trust, you sort of get everyone to sort of relax. And like I said, inevitably they're like, wow, I don't even notice you guys anymore. You've just folded into, the monotony of training camp.
Nice, nice. And when it comes to, outside of the training facility, right, in these guys' homes, in their lives, are they allowing you sort of access on a case by case basis? Is it you guys approaching them saying, hey, we want to follow you a bit more, getting ready, making a smoothie in the morning or going out and doing whatever? Is it really just case by case that you're asking for access for these kind of additional scenes and then getting in the environment and sort of giving a little bit of a setup to allow that to play out?
Yeah, it's sort of a mix of, kind of obvious ones like, "Oh, can we film you packing your bags before you leave for camp?" So that's sort of like, one type of
Mhm.
way that we approach it, and then at that stage, obviously, they don't know us very well, so it's kind of an introductory thing with us. A lot of times, there's something that we heard on someone's wire. So and so was talking about horseback riding at practice with his teammate. Maybe we can ask him to go horseback riding for a shoot. You know what I mean? It's things that are sort of born out of, things we've heard or learned. And then there's just, with superstars, I'm sure this season with Josh Allen, they're going to try to film with him off the field to get to know him a little bit more as a person. And that just kind of, I'm sure, is a conversation that starts with, hey, we'd love to feature you more. You're the star of the team. What's going on? Do you have the offensive lineman over for a dinner that we can maybe film, the first 20 minutes of? It kind of just comes in so many different ways and it's born out of different things, sort of tropes that you've always sort of done or things that you've just learned that you're trying to capture. And it's always a huge collaborative effort from the directors back to the producers and editors here at Films.
Yeah. I know, I wonder if we'll see any of Haley 'cause he's a newlywed. I'm sure that'll be jumping some hoops there.
That'll be quite the achievement, I think, if they
I
pull that off.
agree, I agree. So you mentioned, you're shooting like 300 minutes to everyone. Like it's just over coverage, but you're also turning this around in like near real time. How are you doing that? I mean, what is it like? How are you what does the workflow look like? Obviously, you guys have had a long, long time to perfect it. But what does that workflow look like for the team?
It is a machine. And now in this stage of my career, I'm on the other side of it. But for 10 years, you'd have obviously the crew in the field they would capture, and it's evolved. Now every NFL stadium is able to feed footage back. I don't know exactly how they're doing it. I know that the Bills practice at a college, so I'm sure they figured out some way to feed footage back, but that stuff's coming in every single day. There's a whole team of people that are cataloging it, logging it for the editors. There's notes that start with the directors in the field. They send notes back. The people who log the footage make their notes as well. And then there's a team of editors led by show heads, two show heads that will meet every single day and they will go over those notes. They will make assignments and then producers will then go through the footage and start editing. And it's just, I mean, that's just the kind of getting things to like the getting the show together point. And then there's a whole team of people on the post production side. There's mixers, there's final editors, there's color correction, there's, music composition. We have a composer full time on staff in NFL Films that's usually composes some new Hard Knocks themes each year. I mean, it's such an enormous machine, and we've been doing it so long that I'm sure sometimes take it for granted, but it is pretty incredible, I think, still to this day that it gets turned around as quickly as it does. I mean, we have things that happened the day before that we got to get onto the show in the past, and we pulled that off, which is just, I mean, it's incredible. It's like the opposite of what we do with quarterback. It's a huge runway to get the show that most of which happened in the fall and airs in July, whereas Hard Knocks, it happened on Monday. You got to get it by Tuesday. You know what I mean?
And
It's
it's a
incredible.
wild feat. No, it really is incredible. I mean, and it just seems like such a monster. On the editorial side, how much does the team, the organization, the individuals themselves, do they get to go, "Hey, don't show that," or "Can we cut that?" Or how much sort of oversight by the actual org is there when it comes to that final episode?
Yeah, I mean, the last thing on earth we want to do is like we come and do this documentary series with you, and then something airs that hurts you creatively, or sorry, competitively. So a lot of what we're doing is like, all right, you don't want us to say this play. Oh, whoops. Okay, on this shot we have on this whiteboard, we have some sensitive stuff. So a lot of what they're screening for is in that vein, and that's obviously very important to us. No one really wants that. I think there's this perception that like, we're censoring all this crazy stuff with Hard Knocks, and that's just, I mean, it's just not the case. There's just so many things that, half of training camp is installing plays. I mean, if you played that for a general audience, they'd be bored out of their minds. So I think there is oversight, from the team. I think that's, part of being NFL Films and earning the trust of the teams, but it's really couched as like, hey, let's make sure we're not giving away any competitive advantage with this show and that everyone's happy with what ends up airing.
Yeah, no X's and O's.
Right. And,
Okay,
audiences really don't. I mean, you really want to know how they installed 42 trap, you know what I mean?
right. Yeah, exactly. Like I said, this show has really provided a level of insight into teams and players and dynamics and relationships that nothing else really has before. Do you ever feel the weight of the responsibility of sort of shaping how the public sees players and sees these teams? And because that it shapes the fandom, it could shape a career trajectory. How do you sort of handle that responsibility?
I mean, I think it's extremely important. I can't think of a good example off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's things that have aired in Hard Knocks that have sort of followed someone, forever. And we take that stuff, very seriously. It's funny because when we first get to a camp, we might have people be like, HBO's here. And my thing was always like, no, we're NFL Films. Like, I'm not trying to disrespect HBO by any means, but we take it very seriously that, we're promoting the game, we're promoting the players. No one's going to wear wires for NFL Films if we're not doing right by them. I mean, it's just sort of how our company has started and has always been. And now we obviously try to find the most entertaining aspects of the things that we do, but we also are very cognizant, like, these people are participating with us, they're wearing our wires, or letting us into their homes. We're very conscious of how we present them. And not to say that we don't show guys messing up or in negative lights at times, but the goal in those situations always, always, always is hoping for a redemption arc. Like, no one wants to just see somebody get screamed at practice in a training camp and that's it. You want to see that guy get screamed at, learn from that moment, and then score the game-winning touchdown in the preseason game. Like that's the ultimate goal. So we take that very seriously. We know what responsibility we have, and it's always an ongoing discussion inside NFL Films.
Love it. It's such a good show, and as someone who I don't follow football really closely, I love watching. Well, so quarterback is a different sort of approach, even though you're still looking at the personal lives of this, like, really protected position in the sport. You've got a little more time to maybe plan in advance, and obviously, you have a lot more time in post. Season 2 is out. Season 1, we had Mahomes, and we had Mahomes, Cousins, and who was the third? It started with an
Mariota,
M. Mariota.
Mariota, yeah.
And now we're back with Joe Burrows, Jared Goff, and Kirk Cousins again.
Hmm.
Okay. What do you feel like each of these guys is bringing to this season of quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, we were really excited with the roster. I mean, with both seasons, but yeah, with this year, I mean, Joe Burrow is unarguably one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. You can put him anywhere in that ranking, I'm sure. And he is sort of a mysterious guy. He doesn't
Hmm.
do a ton of media. He's not in commercials or anything like that. So that was, really exciting opportunity for us to get to know this guy, to shine some light on him. I mean, everyone sort of knows he shows up to games wearing, these
Love the
kind of
fashion, love the
crazy
fits.
outfits or however you want to put it. He's been in like Paris Fashion Week. I mean, he's just like a super interesting dude. So the opportunity to sort of follow him, learn what's going on inside his head was really exciting for us. Jared, I mean, I don't know if we've documented a single human being in NFL films more than Jared Goff. I mean, he was on our Hey Rookie show. He's been a part of 3 different Hard Knocks. He did one of our in-season shows, and then he did quarterback. I mean, he's just been so great to us throughout the years. And now he's at a point of his career where he's leading the most exciting offense in the league. I mean, the Detroit Lions are just a terrific story. I mean, they were down in the dumps. I mean, you see it in sort of the first episode. Jared gets traded, his feelings are hurt, and he's welcomed into Detroit. I mean, it's just a great story, and we had such a great time documenting I mean, they had so many fun moments throughout the season there, were like the most explosive offense in the league, and he was the head of it. And so that was a really cool opportunity. And then with Kirk, I mean, Kirk was just terrific in season 1. And I'm sure he surprised everybody. I mean, I don't think anyone expected him to sort of be like the surprise hit of the first series, of the first season. And now he's in a totally different situation. We thought that was really interesting. Like here he is, he's 38 years old, signed this huge contract with a different team. Like that presents different kinds of challenges. And with this show, the goal is always to like let's explore the hardest position in sports. What does it mean to be that person? What goes into that? What pressures do you face? Like how do you deal with your home life? How do you deal with the team? Like now Kirk's this new face of this franchise. How's that going to go? And so there's always these interesting storylines. They're different. They compare and contrast. One of my favorite things about this show is that we can sort of give these guys a topic that they can all talk about and relate to. And then later in the episode, you'll see just how different they are. I mean, I don't think there's anyone quite like Joe Burrow in the league. So, having him with his stylist picking things out was an awesome shoot. Probably not something that I'm sure Kirk and Jared do.
Right.
But then, like, seeing Kirk talk about moving his family and like the challenges there's just, it's so rich with storylines. There's just so many opportunities to do cool things. And, it's this marquee position where everyone's curious. Like, what do these guys really like? What does it take to do this? And so it's been really exciting, especially with season 1 kind of being this blank slate of a show we've never done before. We had lots of opportunities to try some stuff, which was really exciting and cool. And I was really proud of that and really proud of this season as well.
No, it's really fantastic. How did obviously you've been doing Hard Knocks. What made you guys want to zero in? Like I know, quarterback again, the most protected, sort of analyzed position. But, what was the genesis of the series specifically? And had it been in the works for a while and you'd been trying to get it off the ground, or it really took off when you had some good quarterbacks who were willing to play, like literally play ball?
Yeah, Peyton Manning was a huge reason that the show got
Mm,
made. I
okay.
know he specifically personally spoke to Patrick. I was there the day he talked to him and got him to agree to participate in the show. I know it's something Peyton's company,
Omaha.
Omaha Productions, they've been an awesome partner for us in NFL films. And so I know that he was partly behind that. I mean, access driven follow docs are huge in our industry, and I don't know that it gets much better than doing a follow doc about high profile NFL quarterbacks. It sort of was a no brainer once that opportunity came up. The fact that we had a partner like Netflix, which was the first show that we've ever done with Netflix, and with sort of the marching orders of the NFL to sort of expand globally. I mean, there's no better streaming service than Netflix, which is all over the world, to try to, get people more interested in the game and through these players. So, yeah, it definitely started as sort of a Peyton Manning passion project that we obviously partnered with and took it from there.
I love that. I think whether you, again, are a fan of the sport or not, watching people be experts at their craft is so compelling, no matter what it is. You said a lot of these guys are different. Their lives are different. But from the outside looking in, it does seem like quarterbacks tend to have this, like, they all to me seem so cerebral. Like, just really, there's this precision, and I'm not talking about on the field, but there's this seriousness and this attitude that they tend to all have, even
Yeah.
though they're all very different. Do you see a lot of common threads with these guys?
I mean, 100%. I mean, the amount of information they're processing. One of the things that I was pretty proud of this year is we did this little segment featuring all three guys that was all about what happens between the clap of the huddle when they break the huddle to the snap of the ball. Internally, and actually the name of the episode is called Clap the Snap, and it's about this 25 seconds and everything they're doing. And it was just really fascinating, like listening to everything that they're processing in that limited amount of time. And to your point, like they all have to be that cerebral. That's sort of a commonality that goes across everybody. I'm quite sure every quarterback in the league is reading safeties and thinking about where pressure's coming from and all this kind of stuff. And then it's interesting, like Patrick, I was with Patrick season 1, Patrick Mahomes, and he was so fascinating to me in just his unflinching confidence. Like it never mattered ever what the score of the game was. I don't think he ever thought that he was going to lose a game ever. And not to say that other guys are not confident, but the level of confidence from him was crazy. And I'm sure if we were to do a follow doc on someone like Michael Jordan, I'm sure you'd probably see similar traits. But it was just one of those things to me that I was like, well, this is what sets him apart. I mean, these guys are all competitive, but it was sort of uniquely just, someone like Kirk, for instance, awesome quarterback, extremely successful. But I think there's a little bit more out, or at least self-criticism that Kirk is kind of doing throughout the game, whereas I don't think Patrick ever sort of let those thoughts into his mind. Like there was never doubts. There's never like maybe I should have done this differently. He's always just thinking about the next play and how he's going to win the game. And it was just I don't know. It might sound generic, but it was remarkable to me that I don't think he ever thought he was going to lose a game.
I need a dose of that. I love that.
Yeah, couldn't we all, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're meeting these guys at the peak of their career, but they had college careers before this. They played in high school and when they were younger. Is there anything common that you see when it comes to their upbringing? Like, is it like I guess the question I'm trying to get to is sort of a nature versus nurture. Like even Patrick's mindset, is that an innate thing? Has he had that confidence since he was young, or is that something that had to be learned? What are your thoughts when it comes to just that level of talent?
I think there is a lot of commonality in sort of nature. I think there's certain guys that sort of have always had, that gene or whatever you want to say. I'm sure they were dominating Pee Wee football. I mean, Patrick was unique because his father was a professional athlete. So I'm sure that was a little bit of a different trajectory. But you see, I don't think everyone's coming from the same background with quarterbacks. You've seen certain guys. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is kind of a fascinating story. I mean, he didn't get recruited by anybody. He had to go to a junior college. I mean, I think Josh Allen was similar. I think he had to go to a junior college before he got to Wyoming. I should know this, but anyway, there's, Patrick, obviously, professional athlete as a father. I'm pretty sure he was quite well recruited. And meanwhile, you have some of the greatest quarterbacks that have ever lived that had to go to a junior college before anyone would even offer him a
Mhm.
scholarship. So
Right.
while I'm sure that they have very similar mental makeups in order to play that position, their journeys to superstardom have been very different.
Yeah, it's so and like I said, it's just when people are the best of the best at what they do, there's something so incredibly amazing and human about it that I think everyone can appreciate, like that level of achievement. What's the most shocking moment or surprising moment that you experienced this season?
I gotta say, I was pretty shocked when Kirk got benched. Um, did not see that coming. I mean, I know that when a team drafts a quarterback in the first round, there's always sort of that possibility that's hanging over their heads. And I think Kirk was playing through an injury, which sort of impacted his performance. That surprised me. I mean, I think you can say it was justified in what the Falcons wanted to do, but obviously not something I think we anticipated when we started the season. Kirk was just so tremendously um, um, generous with us when that happened. I think I would say the majority of guys, if we were following them, would need some space. And Kirk was like, "You guys can come the next day. You can film my first practice. I'll wear a wire. I'm the backup." I mean, that stuff, obviously, I didn't want that to happen to Kirk. I mean, it's just incredibly compelling to see how he's dealing with it and how he's processing it. And we interviewed his wife immediately afterwards. Like that week, it was so fresh on everyone's mind. I mean, as a documentary filmmaker, I mean, I don't know that it gets better than being present and documenting such raw emotion as it's happening. So that was very sort of shocking and surprising to me. Ultimately, just some really great filmmaking by, our director and editors after the fact. I mean, it's just so compelling to just watch people's real-time reaction and emotions to something that's, so huge.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and see how people pick themselves up and bounce back. Again, it's a whether it's a bad day or a really bad day when you're on that type of platform, I think that transcends everything. I am curious, you mentioned the draft and it got me thinking about this sort of new class of athletes coming through in the NIL era. Are you seeing kind of a huge shift with this new class of athletes who are coming in with, obviously they've gotten paid, they've got brand deals, they maybe transferred to a lot of different teams and just kind of have unlocked a new level a bit earlier in their career than their predecessors. What are you observing kind of about what's happening right now?
Think along these lines, what is interesting to me, which is a little bit different than what you're talking about, I think, is how available making documentaries has become for people. I mean, they're making entire movies on iPhones now. So a lot of these guys, whereas, 10, 20 years ago, if we were to say, hey, we want to feature you in quarterback, I'm sure it would have been really novel and different and unique. Whereas in this day and age, a lot of these guys are sort of going out on their own and making, whatever you want to say, content or little follow docs. I mean, the opportunities have just increased exponentially. And obviously the internet being what it is, you could make a series and drop it on a website. Whereas 20 years ago, that, wasn't a thing. So I think that while I'm sure NIL has really made a huge impact in college football, I'm just not a huge college football fan. I do think, though, that sort of the superstars have always been the superstars, if that makes any sense. Like, I think Peyton Manning, while he didn't have NIL opportunities, was always the top dog, always the top recruit, always getting the opportunities. And so I would imagine that, he experienced a lot of similar things to Cam Ward, even though it wasn't like, getting paid in college. But I don't know how much different that sort of affects these sort of upper echelon dudes that even going back, I'm sure 20, 30 years, whoever the most sought after guys were in the college game are still the most sought after guys and they're still getting the opportunities. I just think that for us and for, this media background, the idea that everyone has a camera on them at all times is so much different than what we used to do, at NFL Films.
Totally. Yeah, 100%. Okay, I'm going to ask you a couple of final questions. Is there any football story you're dying to tell, like a myth or a legend, something from the past, an individual's biopic? I don't know. Is there anything that you're just like, oh, I would love to tell that story?
I think if I had a passion project, I've probably pitched it a million times at
Mm,
this point in my career. It's funny because so much of what I do is in this follow doc space. And those things, what hasn't happened yet is sort of the most interesting thing to me. I sort of become more attracted to this kind of documentary filmmaking versus, say, doing a big feature on a story from whatever, 30 years ago, that I more identify with relatability. And I think both quarterback and hard knocks offer that up as opposed to maybe the, older stories that are going to be more finely crafted, which I appreciate those as well. But just in terms of my own personal taste, I sort of love like, let's go follow Joe Burrow in the 2024 season, see what happens. So that's exciting to me. And that's sort of more, I guess, along my filmmaking talents and
and
tastes.
so what's unfolding versus more of a hindsight point of view?
I
So you
think
enjoy the
so.
chaos then?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because everyone, justifiably so, points to Last Dance, and what was obviously great is that you had the modern interviews with all those guys that are able to be really candid because it happened so long ago. But part of it was this follow doc element that they captured decades ago that never saw the light of day.
Hmm.
So while that's, a documentary that focuses on something from the past, there was still this element of like this follow doc that no one ever saw with one of the greatest teams of all time, which I loved. I mean, I love so many things about Last Dance, but I thought that was incredibly interesting as well.
It had an energy to it that is hard to capture with archival, I think.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. It's one of those that I feel like everyone it's the last dance for X, like when
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
pitching, you know what I mean? Do you have a favorite season of Hard Knocks?
Yeah, it would probably be the Houston one. That was my first one as director, and we won Best Series at the Emmys for that, and I got to accept that award on stage, which was obviously a night that I'll never forget, being it as it was my first season. But I mean that to me, and I'm sure there's plenty of people who would want to argue with me, but I mean, we just sort of had it all. I feel like we had J.J. Watt at the height of his powers. I mean, at the time he was the best defensive player in the league. I thought Bill O'Brien was a great head coach. We had Vince Wilfork doing crazy stuff like wearing nothing but overalls to a practice field. We had great long shot characters. I thought we did a really good job of developing and getting the audience to care about these guys on the fringes of the roster. I mean, that season to me had it all, and maybe I'm biased because it was my first year as director, but that'll always sort of be my favorite project that I've done.
Do you what's your I mean, who's your team? Who are you rooting for?
I am a Miami Dolphins fan. I will say, unfortunately, it's kind of, I guess, I don't know if it's irony or just sad that ever since I've been working here, they have not won a playoff game. I think they have the longest drought in the entire NFL. So I got my internship in 2003, and their last win was in 2001. So, when you're a filmmaker for the NFL and your favorite team isn't very good, it's it's
It's a different
frustrating.
kind of pain.
Yeah, and you just can't quit them. You know what I mean? You just can't, like, as much as you want to sometimes be like, all right, I'm done with them. It's like you just can't. Like, you've been following them for like 30 years now. You're
I know, and
hooked.
there's gotta we love a comeback. Just the comeback is always so good, but
Hopefully that
my
happens.
thoughts and prayers to you.
Yeah, thanks.
Is there a scripted show or movie that you feel like captures football the best?
Man, that's interesting. I don't know. I don't really have a favorite football movie. I love the movie Bull Durham, which is about baseball. And I always just felt like there was this. I mean, I know it's Hollywood and I know it's embellished, but there was something about the baseball scenes that always sort of felt like we were getting inside, like pulling back the curtain on baseball that I always loved about that. And I don't know. I mean, baseball's such a different sport than football. So I don't know that anyone's ever sort of captured that same sort of magic, but I always sort of just loved Bull Durham as a sports movie because, while you have sort of the romance thing on the top level, they definitely cared about sort of the inside baseball scenes that I made you feel like you were, witnessing stuff as it really happens, which I always loved.
Who is on your Mount Rushmore of professional athletes? They can be past, present, any sport. Who's up there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a long time until I see someone that is as good as Patrick Mahomes. So, kind of one of the reasons I volunteered, I very much wanted to direct him was because I just thought he was like a generational talent. So I would have to put him up there. It's funny because I'm in such a headspace of quarterbacks. I'm just thinking like Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, like Michael Vick,
Mhm.
like just guys that you sort of imprint on your brain. And whenever someone asks you a question like that, you start thinking of them. But I just remember even with before sort of it's funny now of Patrick's arc of where he was sort of the guy everyone wanted to root for because he was young and cool and different. And now like they've won so much now everyone like, is dumping
It's
on the
so
Chiefs
funny
and hoping
how
they lose.
people like how people switch up. And I do get it because I we love an underdog and we when people get real confident, we don't necessarily love it. Like it's interesting to see sort of the switch up when it comes to specific athletes and
Yeah,
teams.
it really is. And it's
Yeah.
so funny because it wasn't that long ago where the Chiefs were the underdogs and it was like, oh, so great, so happy for Andy Reid. And I love Andy Reid. And but yeah, it's now they're and they've acknowledged this. Like they realize that they're now the what people used to think about the Patriots is just like they just want them to lose and they're the bad guys. And so it's fascinating to see that happen. But yeah, Patrick just plays the game with such that I mean, it's kind of cliche, but like that childlike enthusiasm and just the stuff he does is probably the stuff that we pretended we would do when we were in our backyards, being like, it's fourth down and I need 20 yards. And, he's out there actually making this fantasies into reality and it just feels impossible. So yeah, I would say, yeah, Peyton, Tom Brady, Mahomes, and I'll put Vic on there just because he's so unique in my.
Yeah, that childlike quality you're talking about, and that confidence that you have as a child before the world kind of any self-doubt. I think that's all something like I said, we could use a dose of in all of our daily lives and in our careers. And, thank you so much for sharing this insight. You can watch all of Quarterback on Netflix season 2 right now. And of course, Hard Knocks training camp with the Buffalo Bills is unfolding on HBO as we speak. And now you can watch it and know just how much the team is working on to get it out. So thank you so much, Matt. It was really
Thank you.
awesome to talk to you.
Great. Good to talk to you as well.
Thanks. Okay, even as someone who only dabbles in fantasy football and turns on games solely for vibes, I really enjoyed that conversation with Matt. I hope you did too. Again, so happy to be back. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, comment, all the things. We have an incredible lineup of guests this fall and winter. And I just cannot wait for you guys to hear from these really talented people. So happy to be back. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at UnscriptedFilesPod, and I'll see you next Friday. The Unscripted Files is brought to you by Good Gravity Entertainment. Thank you to producer Bonnie Adams, original music by composer William Wright, artwork by Lisa Schweikert, and photography by Reed Schick.